Hello, Becky here. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel. I am here to do a Who Did It Better video. I read 2 books. I listened to one in July on our trip to BC, and I listened to one in like September, I think August, September time. This video is meant to be a secular versus Christian story, both having the same basic plot points or elements to them, and who I thought did a better job of telling that kind of story. I don't have any other ideas at the moment for books that have similar themes, plot lines, whatever, that are one being secular and one being a Christian written book. But I did find one today when I was at the store called My Murder or My Killing or something, about a woman who is murdered and is somehow brought back to life through some kind of government program of some kind, and she gets back home to her son or her child and her husband, and she finds out that she has to solve her own murder. I also have one that I picked up when I was in BC that is a thriller about a guy who is murdered and has to solve his own murder. Some like detective people come to the door, knock on his door, and tell him that they need his help, and they bring him to the morgue, and he lifts the sheet off and it's him lying on the morgue table. So I'm thinking I might do those 2 next in the new year. Let me know what you think, and if you have any other ideas of books that are similar in the secular world versus the Christian world, and I'd love to read them and tell you my thoughts and feelings about them. This is the first episode, I guess, in this series, and I'm not 100% sure how I want it to go, what I want to do. I will hopefully be able to do it more vlog style in the future. I just wasn't able to get to it as much this time just because we were traveling and I needed an audiobook to listen to, so I figured I would pick that one up. So the first one I read, when I heard the plot line of it, I remember it being very much like the Christian one that I have. That is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. So that is a story about this girl named Enchanted, and she wants to be a singer. I think she's 17, almost 18. She's kind of just like on the cusp of being legal age, but isn't quite there yet. And she's also the oldest of, I believe, 5 children. And she wants to be a singer. That is a passion and a goal of hers, and she's actively trying to pursue a career in singing while also helping her parents with raising the children and going to school and things like that. Enchanted is also on, I think, a swim team and enjoys swimming or volleyball or something, some kind of sport that she does at school and stuff. And she tells her mom that she has a meet after school on this specific day, and her mom drives her to this place because it's kind of out of the way, and she goes to the meet and then like sneaks off and actually goes to these auditions. And at these auditions there is a very famous singer there, Corey Field, I believe, if I'm remembering that right, and she does not get picked. They're kind of like, you're good, but this lady is better kind of thing, and it's like, that's really hard and disappointing and upsetting, of course. But Corey Fields sees her and he's like, I like you. And he is older, he's like 25, around that, like mid-20s. And he's like, I like you, you have a lot of passion, this, that, you know, talking her up kind of thing. And he wants to take her on tour, and he wants her to be his partner in singing. And he's like, I can take you far, I can get you into this business kind of thing. And the story goes from there. She is still technically a minor, so her parents have to sign off on her going on this trip and touring, and they talk about how she's still in school, so they say that they will provide tutoring and stuff for her so that she can complete her schooling as well. Their family is not well off. They're doing okay, but both her parents have to work to help support the home. So part of the appeal of doing this is that she would get paid and be able to give that money to her parents to help cover the costs, especially with her not being there to help with babysitting and stuff. So this story has a lot of trigger warnings, as all of Tiffany D. Jackson's stories do. There is a lot of grooming by Corey towards Enchanted, and he is very manipulative, and when she says things like, I want to go back home, or I want to talk to my mom, or whatever, she's trying to get back in contact with her family, he says things like, no, they don't want you there. No, they were glad that I took you because you were just an extra mouth to feed. She has to like work off the money that he's kind of given in advance to her family and stuff, and he's like, oh, your parents just want money, 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 all this stuff, and she's confused because she hasn't talked to them, she hasn't heard from them, and she's feeling very dejected by this, of course. And there are a few lines in this book that, as I was reading it, I was just like, wow, like, it just makes you so angry that people do this, especially older people taking advantage of younger people in a situation where that younger person has dreams and this older person has accomplished those dreams or is farther along in the journey and is like, I'll help you, come with me, kind of thing. And she is a virgin and she does not want to sleep with Corey. She wants to wait until they're married, kind of thing. And he's sleeping with other women and he's just like, well, you won't give it to me, I have to get it from somewhere. I'm a man, I have needs. And I just want to punch him in the face because that logic just pisses me off so much. As human beings, we have needs and we are created as sexual beings. And there is nothing wrong with sex in the right context. Again, I am a Christian. You all know that. Unless this is your first time clicking on a video of mine, I do believe that God intended sex to be within the confines of marriage. And this is not the video to talk about why I believe that. My own personal background with that. I'm not here to judge anyone who lives a different lifestyle or has different views on it. That's not what this is about. But I just hate when guys, especially guys, say like, I have needs and you're not meeting them, so I'm gonna find them somewhere else. And it's like, you're a human being. You have the right to control yourself. If you're being faithful to your spouse in a heterosexual male-female relationship, there are going to be times when sex isn't an option at that moment, especially if you choose to have children. After giving birth, there's a time of healing that needs to occur before having traditional intercourse. And guys could just say, well, I have needs, and it's like a 6-week period of time. Depending how the end of the pregnancy went, it might have been a little bit longer than 6 weeks since you have been intimate with your wife. And a lot of women, especially after the first baby, they're not comfortable with getting intimate like that again. And there's a lot going on. And guys need to be able to say, like, this is just a dry spell in our marriage, in our relationship, that's okay, and be able to control themselves. So it just upsets me so much when people are just like, I have needs and I'm gonna find them wherever I can, kind of thing. And I'm like, a real man doesn't act like that, doesn't talk like that, doesn't think like that. So I vividly remembered that and it just upset me so much. What I like about this story and what Tiffany D. Jackson did with it, so this Tiffany D. Jackson is a Black writer and she writes Black female. Yeah, all the ones I've read from her are female protagonists. And Enchanted is from a loving, intact family. She has a mother, she has a father, she has younger siblings, and they love each other, and it's a happy family. There isn't the struggle of having a father in jail, having an absentee father, of having a single parent, whether it's the dad or the mom. There is no like drug addiction, there is no abusive stepfather in the story or stepmother kind of idea. She's from a loving family. And this also goes to show that these kind of situations that Enchanted finds herself in by going off with Corey don't always happen to people that are vulnerable because they are lonely or without a father and they're trying to fill that role of father in their life, or whatever the situation may be. Enchanted was loved and came from a loving home and was well taken care of and had her needs met. So this just goes to show that this grooming and everything like that can happen to anybody. And there are like characteristics and stuff that come up that psychologists and stuff will talk about how predators pick their victims and find their victims and stuff. And there was probably something in Enchanted that she was missing, and she wanted to be a singer and a performer so bad. Not that that's a weakness or something missing for her, but just that it was an area of vulnerability. Not weakness, but vulnerability. She wanted this thing so bad that she had this great passion, and Corey saw that and said, I can use that and tell her I will give her the world, kind of thing. Again, Tiffany D. Jackson did a really great job with this story and the nuances of the characters. I really liked it and thought it was a really well done audiobook as well. I do not have a physical copy of it. I only listened to it as an audio. The Christian book I read, this was a reread for me at the time that I was reading Francine Rivers. This was one of the newer ones. This was copyright 2014. Was I reading it that long ago? I feel like this was new when I got it. So possibly. Maybe I got it in 2015. I didn't think it was that old. But this is Bridge to Haven by Francine Rivers. This is a lot thicker and bigger and longer than the Grown book. So there's a lot of differences. The main plot line of going off with an older male to follow your dreams kind of thing, or to get out of a bad situation, is basically where it ends. The grooming and stuff from that is in here as well. Francine Rivers does a lot of historical fiction, romance, and this one is 1957. It starts before 1957 though. Okay, it starts in 1936. Our main character is born. It starts with her mom coming in and giving birth. Just has been driving forever, stops in the small town of Haven, doesn't know anyone there or anything like that, goes under like a bridge, gives birth, and wraps up the baby and leaves. She doesn't want anything to do with this baby, or so we assume. We don't know why she's left this baby, just that she left this baby. And there is this pastor Zeke, and he walks around the town every day. He is married and has a son who is 4 or 5 or 6 or something. And he walks around the town of Haven every single day praying over the citizens there, anything going on in the world, going on in Haven with his family, whatever. It's his prayer walk. And he felt this nudging to go walk over this bridge. And he's like, oh, that's going to take me a little bit longer. That's the longer route. I don't know if I want to do that today. I want to get home. All these things are kind of running through his head, but he feels this really strong urge and pull to go to this bridge. So he goes to the bridge, he stops, he thinks, he ponders, he prays a little bit, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go home now. And then he hears this sound, and newborn infants and cats kind of have that same sound to them. Or kittens anyways, that kind of mewing, crying sound. And he's like, what is that? I don't know where's that sound coming from? What is it? And he goes down and discovers this baby and wraps her up. You can tell she's cold. I'm not sure what time of year it is. October. So it's a little bit cold and the baby is clearly not doing well, but is still alive. And he wraps it up, puts it in his coat kind of thing, and walks her to the hospital. It's 1936. It's not like they had cell phones for him to call an ambulance or anything. Walks her to the hospital. His wife comes and his son, and they see this baby. And there was another couple there who had just recently given birth to a baby girl. I don't know if it was like within that day or week or just within the last couple of months, but their baby girl is new. And they're there and they're considering adopting this baby that was found. And the pastor's wife is like, oh, Zeke, she's so beautiful. I want her and everything. But she, as a kid, had contracted something that affected her heart, and she's doing okay, but having had a child already, it really weakened her heart more, and she almost didn't survive having that child, basically. And it wasn't even just the pregnancy and the birth and the strain of labor, but also taking care of an infant afterwards is quite draining physically. And so it was very hard for her, and the doctor said you should not have any more children. So they kind of resigned themselves to that fate. They're like, okay, it is not in the cards for us. God is not planning for us to have any more biological children. And she's like, Zeke, I really want to adopt this little girl. And he's like, no, we really, really shouldn't. It's too hard for you, especially with not a toddler, he's like 5, but still a young child who needs constant care and attention, to bring in a new baby. And she's like, oh, I really want her. She's so sweet. It's a girl. We'll round out our family. It'll be perfect. He's like, okay, we will take her in for a short amount of time, like a fostering situation, and see how it goes. And there's this other family in town here that want to adopt her. And they already have a little baby girl, so it's kind of perfect. Like, they're set up to have a baby, right? And so they take home, and they name her Abra. They bring her home and take care of her for quite a long time, like 5 years. And unfortunately, the wife does end up passing away from her heart condition. And the pastor is overwhelmed by the loss of the love of his life and having a teenage son now, and then this 5-year-old girl. She goes to stay with her friend who would have been her sister had she been adopted by them originally when she was first found. And this story obviously is a lot more detailed than growing. Like, we get her story from day one, from birth. I'm just talking about how she was found, where she went with her family, or who she got adopted by, kind of thing. And I haven't even gotten to the parts of her going off to Hollywood. Anyways, the pastor drops her off at that family's home, and he's like, I just need a couple of days, kind of thing, to work things out. And they end up keeping her. And I don't know if they ever, like, officially adopt her or not, but she feels obviously abandoned. And the pastor just feels like, I can't do this. This is too much for me, emotionally, physically, mentally, financially, maybe. This is not something I can keep doing. And he makes the extremely difficult decision to give her up for adoption to the other family, or to put her in their care anyways. And she is devastated, and she's like, that's my dad. That's my brother. Like, she doesn't understand why he has abandoned her. And they all go to church and everything, and she's just like, God, there is no, not that there's no God, but like, I think it's more God doesn't hear my prayers, God doesn't see me, then there is no God at all. And she is devastated and she's upset, and every time, because he's the pastor of the church that they go to, every time they go there, she's like, are you taking me home now? Are you taking me home now? So they end up going to like a different church, and at the time that it's happening, they feel like they're doing the best for her and not realizing just how broken she is over this whole situation. So you fast forward till she's like 18. This happens during World War I, because it starts in 1936. So her brother Joshua, she doesn't really end up growing up with him up until the age of 5. It's her brother, but then after that there's this split there, so there's a bit of a love story there. It's kind of a little bit weird because you're like, that's her brother, but it's not biologically her brother, and she stopped living with him at the age of 5, and there was this, like I said, this separation because they ended up going to a different church in a different town and everything, and Joshua is like 5-6 years older than her, so there ends up being like a relationship there, but he like goes off to war. There's a whole section in here with not his backstory, but his time in the war, talking about the war, writing letters to Abra and his dad and things like that. You get his perspective in this, you get Zeke's perspective, and you get Abra's perspective. So if you want background, if you want family dynamics, if you want history, like a soldier in the war kind of thing, that's all in here. This, compared to Groen's like length of a book, which would be more like this, I feel like the people who are interested in Groen wouldn't necessarily want to read this, or like they would want to cut out like this much of it, because they want, like, Tiffany D. Jackson gets to the point. Here's Enchanted, she wants to sing, this guy Corey picks her up, he's manipulative, he's grooming her, and she's just put into this really bad situation. This, there's so much that happens, but it's also a story about faith and hope and God loving you and God's ultimate plan and weaving it all together, and all the heartbreak and the horror that you see in this, the sadness that you see, it's all there to show the love of God and how what God is actually doing to put it all together. Francine Rivers is trying to tell a different story than what Tiffany D. Jackson is in Groen. But if you like all that stuff, all the history, the background and stuff, you would enjoy this, but it is a lot longer. It was like a 12-hour audiobook or something. Anyways, let's fast forward to when she gets adopted by the other family, taken in by the other family. The girl is like, yay, I finally have the sister I always wanted. And then they end up giving Abra a little bit more attention because, you know, her mom just died and she's going through this really hard time and moving homes and stuff. And the girl, Penny or whatever, is like upset that Abra's getting all this attention. And after a while, she's just like, I don't want my sister anymore. Take her away, kind of thing. So Abra feels on the outside of everything. She does not belong to this family. She does not fit in. She's feeling rejected by her pastor, Zeke, her father. Her mother died, so that's like an abandonment right there. She's feeling rejected by the family that she's been brought into. A lot of rejection and sadness, and that's where the difference is with Groen and Bridge to Haven, is that she's from brokenness, where Enchanted is from the loving, intact family. So this guy comes in and he's fast talking, he's a charmer, he's bad news, everyone can see it, and her sister is like, I want to go out with this guy, he likes me. And her sister is more into boys and getting that attention, where Abra is a little bit more shy and reserved. And the sister goes on a couple of dates with this Dylan guy, and then she's like, there's something wrong with this guy. I don't feel right about him. I don't like it. I'm done with him. And so Dylan puts his sights on Abra and is like, I can get you out of this town. They don't love you. Doing the whole grooming, I can't say that word. Manipulative things that he's doing to make her realize, like, I don't belong here. And he's like, I'm gonna take you away. I'm gonna take you to Hollywood. I'm gonna make you a star, kind of thing. The difference here with Abra and Enchanted is Enchanted wants to be a singer. Abra never had any ambitions to be an actress, a singer, nothing like that at all. She didn't have those kind of ambitions. That wasn't her goal. So Dylan takes her away, and his mom is like a reporter for like a gossip magazine that reports on Hollywood, and it starts here like 1957. To those who matter in Hollywood, Lisa Scott is the hottest rising star to hit the silver screen since Marilyn Monroe. So if you read this too, there's a little bit of name dropping and stuff, like she meets Elvis Presley. So it's kind of cool for the historical part of it. And if you know, like, I know who Marilyn Monroe is, but I don't know much about 1950s cinema and Hollywood and the starlet scene. But Dylan's mom, yeah, is like a gossip columnist person, and Dylan does this like all the time, gets these women, and his mom always has to deal with Dylan's mistakes and the women he brings home. And so she uses Abra as a way to get gossip. You're a pretty face? put on a nice dress, put on some makeup, do your hair, walk around and get the gossip for me. And that's how she ends up staying like with Dylan and being like accepted into staying with him. For how long this book is and how much it covers, from her birth in 1936 to her as a young woman in 1957, it covers like Josh going to war, all the stuff that it covers. It also moves very quickly as well. Like, one day she's going to Dylan's place and is doing all this stuff for his mom, and then like the next chapter it's like, you're lucky, Dylan usually throws his girls off to the side after a couple of weeks, but you've lasted a whole year, you're different. And I'm like, a year? What happened? Where did the last 52 weeks go? So the pacing of it is a little weird. Not horrible, but it's a little bit all over the place. And then there's this guy that shows up. His name is Franklin, and he's at one of these parties, these famous parties that Dylan's mom throws, and Dylan has lost interest in Abra. He doesn't care about her anymore, and says something to Franklin, and Franklin is basically like an agent trying to find new stars. And he's like, I bet you couldn't do anything with Abra. And he's like, I bet I could, kind of thing. And so he takes Abra out of this horrible, horrible situation. So spoiler alert, I should have mentioned for Groen and Bridge to Haven, there will be some spoilers. But in Groen, Enchanted said, I don't want to sleep with you. I want to wait until we're married. And Corey respected that. In this, even though it's a Christian novel and Abra grows up with like a pastor and in a faith-filled home, both at the pastor's and when she moves to the next house, and going to church, and she learns piano and learns how to sing, and the piano teacher is teaching her hymns and making her play at church and everything like that. Like, she's very much steeped in her Christian upbringing. She does feel like she has to compromise and have sex with Dylan to keep him around, and that is not explicit on page. You just know it's happening, but it is happening off page. Francine Rivers doesn't hide from like the darker stuff. And this Franklin guy comes, he rescues her. He's the knight in shining armor kind of thing. He's older. I think he's in his 40s-ish or later 30s to her like 18, 19, 20. He's like, I'm gonna make you a star. I'm gonna make you a star. And that's who Lena Scott is. Lena Scott is Abra Williams or something her last name is. Matthews. Abra Matthews. And he's like, Lena Scott, and he changes her hair, and he does this, and he does that, and he keeps her on like this really restrictive diet, and he's got her going to all the hot parties to go to, and just making a star out of her. And she's like, don't you have other clients? He's like, don't worry about them. I'm on you. I'm focused on you. He slept with like the last client he had and broke up his marriage, and his children hate him kind of thing. And he's like, it's all different now. You're a different person. I'm a different person, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it's about their relationship, and then eventually she's like, no, I don't want to sleep with you unless we're married and we're in love and all these things. And they do get married, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. I won't spoil all of it. I don't know how interested you'll be in reading it, but if you like Christian fiction, you have probably read Francine Rivers. But I won't spoil everything that happens, but just there's two manipulative relationships in here that Abra goes through, and so much heartbreak, and feeling so lost and angry at her family and at God, and feeling like, where is God in all of this? Why doesn't God love me? Why doesn't my family love me? Why am I so rejected? And it really is a story of God's love and getting her out of that situation and working it all together for good in the end. Now, I think if you like Tiffany D. Jackson and her stories, and if you liked Groen, will you like this? Probably not. I think about all the videos that I have seen on YouTube talking about books and stuff and being like, I don't care about these characters. Why are we getting this person's perspective? Why is there all this background? I don't care, I don't care, I don't care. And I feel like people will think that about this book. If you liked this, would you like Groen? Possibly. Of course, being like a Christian fiction book, this story, there is no like on-scene explicit content and swearing and stuff, where Groen would have more. Although she doesn't sleep with him, I don't think Groen has many like explicit sex scenes in it. There would be more swearing and stuff in Groen, but I don't remember it being like overly offensive. Groen is more to the point. There's no like filler stuff at all. This one, you have to want to care about the characters in this, including Joshua and Zeke and Abra and the town of Haven and all of the story. Like all of it, you really do have to care about that. So I would not recommend this for fans of Groen. Possibly you might like Groen if you are a fan of this, though. So I would give Groen like a 4 out of 5. And I did love this like the first time I read it, I think. But this is probably more like a 3.5. but it is very long and does have a lot of extra stuff in it. Like, I didn't need to know about Josh in the war so much, except for the fact that it does talk about like how his perspective has changed and where his thoughts and feelings are coming from. It does give that, but there might have been other ways, like maybe just letters between him and Abra and not his point of view within the war. Did we need his story at all? I don't know if that was really necessary. Enchanted is not a love story. It is manipulation from an older guy trying to tell a girl that he can give her everything she wants, everything her heart desires, all of her dreams will come true. And she believes that she's in love with him and that he loves her, but it's not really a true love story. There is a love story in here between Abra and Joshua and not the men that have manipulated her. She does believe that she's in love with Franklin and there is a marriage at one point, but that is not the true love story. And of course, the love between God and his children as well. Anyways, I enjoyed reading both of these and kind of seeing the differences between a secular take on a story and a Christian take on a similar story. And I definitely want to read like a thriller next for this series. Comment down below what book or storyline I should try and find comp titles for in the secular and the Christian world of any genre, really. And I will do a little bit more research. Maybe I have a couple of Christian books I want to read, so maybe I can try and find the secular counterparts to them and hopefully do this more in the future. Please like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for your support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!